It's fun to be back with you guys. I was here a few months back, and I came by way of Jessup, so I've had a relationship there for a long time. I went to that school when it was San Jose Christian, and then when it moved up here, my dad started the business department and worked it for a while. Then he retired. Thank you. And now my daughter goes there, and she's got like 1 year left. And so I've pastored most of my adult life in some sort of formal role, but then the last like 7 or 8 years, I stepped back from any kind of positional pastoring. We've still like loved and served in lots of different ways, but I haven't been pastoring in order to take care of home. My kids were heading into teenage years, and it was like they have not gotten the best of me, and this is a really, really critical time. And just on the other end of it, our relationships are awesome, and they all love the Lord, and I would not trade that for anything. So now they're older, and they don't want to hang out with me as much, so I have more time, and I can like come and do things like this, which is really a wonderful way for me to kind of get back into the rhythm of serving in this particular way. So that's how I got here, was by way of Jessup, and met Corey, and we hit it off, and I really love him and you guys out here, and it was really fun last time, so I'm glad to be back. I do have a full-time job, and so I want to introduce the passage we're going through this event we just had for my work like last month, or maybe a little farther ago. So I do software sales, technology sales. It's super, super boring. But we had one event that was kind of exciting, and this is one that other guys had hyped up. They're like, this is a really good event. Our clients are going to want to go to it. It was the Sonoma Raceway for the real like racing experience. So we're going to actually get in the cars and zip around the track at Sonoma Raceway. But I'm not really a car guy. I've never been a car guy. I love sports, but it's always the ball sports, not the car sports. And so like the most I know about racing is from the movie Cars, so like that's not helping me at all. I don't know much about it. So I was like, okay, I probably won't even get in the car. It's just going to be a fun thing. At least we'll be out of the office and hopefully eat good food. And we get there, and it's really cool. Like it's this big giant track. It's you get kind of caught up in all of it. They have all the historical like memorabilia, and you see the raceway, and I was like, okay, I got to do this. Like I got to get in the car, because when else am I going to have this chance? And of course it's all free. My company's paying for it. So I'm like, all right, I'm starting to get excited. Like I'll get in the car. And then we're talking to the guy, and we're like, asking questions like what kind of car, how fast it's going to go. And he says, you're going to go around in Toyota Camrys. And I was like, you mean like the Uber I just took, like Toyota Camry? Like what? And he's like, it's a Toyota Camry. He's like, okay, all right. Well, maybe I don't know, maybe I'm missing something. And then he's like, well, you guys want to go see the cars? And we go look, it's a Toyota Camry. Like he opens it up. There's no like racing, whatever, cool steering wheel. There's no like roll thing. There's no like harness. It's just a Toyota Camry. And so I'm like, all right, well. And then I just had this feeling like there must be more to it. Like, there's no way, because it feels like right now, it feels like the guy brought his car and just charged us a lot of money to like drive us around the track. I'm like, there's got to be more to it. So it looks like your car, buddy. And so it turns out there was a lot more to it. These were the pace cars, and they were like really souped up. And they took us around the track like two at a time, and it was crazy. Like they were screeching around every turn. They were very, very comfortable being like inches from each other. So like and they're passing all this time. So we're like zipping around like U-turns, passing with a car inches from you, and it was just nuts. And so I did it, never doing it again, but did it once. Like they were way more comfortable than I was with that. But I bring it up to draw out that feeling of you're seeing something and you just know there's got to be more to it. Like I'm missing something, okay? There's no way my company paid thousands of dollars for this guy to drive us around in his car. So there must be more to it. And that's the way I felt about the passage we're going to for years. We're going to be looking at the story of Jesus' first miracle where he turns water into wine. And for so long, I just didn't get like the significance or why this matters. Because this is how I think of it, is you think of the timing and the intentionality and the purposefulness, if that's a word, of God. Like he knew, the Bible says he knew us before the foundations of the world, right? Like he had imagined and dreamt, however that works for God, he had dreamt up you and me before he even created the world. And then for thousands of years he waits, and he always has this redemption story in mind. He waits and waits till the perfect timing to send his son to come and redeem his broken creation. And then Jesus comes in the right moment in human history for so many reasons, the right exact moment to come and redeem and save everything. And then for 30 years, he waits to do his ministry. Right? Like, what was that like for 30 years to be like, is it time? Is it time? No. And he waited. He's so patient, so intentional, the best timing. And then he starts his ministry. It's finally like it's go time, right? And he kicks off his ministry with what feels like an elaborate party trick. And that's how I always view it. I was like, I don't like water to wine. Like, how is this his big launch into ministry? Like, start by raising a dead guy. Like, let's like go big in this. It just, I knew when I would look at it that there was something missing. And it wasn't until I started to chase those questions in my heart and my mind that all this meaning opened up. And that's what we're going to go to today, and that's what we're going to walk through. But before we get in, I just want to encourage you, like, that's how this book was written. So the rabbinical teaching style, the rabbis in that day who were the teachers, they would teach in a way that they would conceal a matter, like conceal the truth, the meaning, the purpose, so that the listener would want to discover it, to uncover the truth. And it was a way to understand something more fully and more deeply. So they wouldn't veil it so that you would never find it. They would veil it so you'd go, what was that part? And ask questions and dig and uncover the truth. That's why they taught in things like parables. And that's how God chose so much of his book to be written, was through that teaching style. So many of these passages, the encouragement for beyond today is when you get to a place where it just raises questions and you're like, that's weird, why a party trick? You would then chase that question and uncover the meaning that God has hidden just beneath the surface for you to discover and uncover. That's how this book was written, and there's so much richness. And I think hopefully we'll see that today, and we'll enjoy some of that together, as well as when you go future study of the Bible. So we're going to start in John chapter 2, right at verse 1. And I'm going to go ahead and read the whole thing because it's not a long story, and then we'll break it down. On the third day, there was a wedding at Cana in Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Jesus was invited to the wedding with his disciples. When the wine ran out, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And Jesus said to her, "Woman, what does this have to do with me? My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Now there were 6 stone water jars there for the Jewish rites of purification, each holding 20 or 30 gallons. Jesus said to the servants, "Fill the jars with water." And they filled them up to the brim. And he said to them, "Now draw some out and take it to the master of the feast." So they took it. When the master of the feast had tasted the water now become wine, and did not know where it came from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew, the master of the feast called the bridegroom and said to him, "Everyone serves the good wine first. When the people have drunk freely, then the poor wine. But you have kept the good wine until now." This is the first of his signs Jesus did at Cana in Galilee, and manifested his glory, and his disciples believed in him. All right, so there is our first miracle and the start of Jesus' ministry. And so in order to get to a deeper meaning, I want to break down the problem, like the situation a little bit. And so there's 3 areas we're going to highlight that really help us to understand a little bit more of like the cultural context and why this was such a big deal. Okay, so the first one is the wedding party. So I have my oldest daughter is 20, been in a significant relationship, so like weddings are kind of on our mind. Like it's something I actually think about all the time. And we know it's like this one day, super expensive. Like that's my one job, is to pay for it, right? I don't have an opinion on anything else. I just have to pay for it. And apparently I'm not supposed to complain about it. And so that's like really overwhelming. But in this day, it was even different. It wasn't a one-day thing. It was half a week to a full week. And so this is a really big, long celebration. And in that culture, there wasn't a lot of times where a family would host an extravagant get-together. Like there actually wasn't a lot of ways and times for extravagance. Like they wouldn't show off with this big house or fancy car or things like that. Most of their feasts and festivals were revolving around their faith, like Passover. And so this is one time for a family to come to the forefront and host the party for their loved ones and to kind of go all out. But it actually was bigger than that too. So the way it would work would be the bride and the groom. So like the groom, when he would propose, it would be arranged by the parents, and then he would come and propose to the bridegroom. Yep. And if she said yes, if she accepted, then it would be a legally binding agreement right then and there. Like that's when they would be legally married, although they wouldn't, like have the wedding and the ceremony yet. He would then go off and for about a year, not in inexact time, about a year, he would go to his father's house and he would build an extension onto his home. He would build a place for them to live. And he'd be building and preparing and saving for their life together. And in that year, his job was to demonstrate that he could take care of her and provide a life for her. Her job during that year was to stay ready and to stay pure. Was to be ready, because when he was finally done with the home and when the father finally signed off and said, yes, it's good to go, then they would have this procession where they would go in the middle of the night with his groomsmen and they would go and snatch the bride up from where she's at, from her house, and they would steal her away and they would go kick off this week-long celebration. And she wouldn't know the day or the hour that it came. And if some of that language is sounding familiar, yes, that's the language Jesus is using in John 14 when he talks about going, like after he dies, he's going to go and prepare a place for us. So that's a whole separate sermon that I would love to get into one day, but we're going to focus back on our story. So all of that has taken place before this feast, and in the groom's preparation also included the wedding feast. So for a year, he's supposed to be working diligently to prove that he could take care of and provide for this woman. And it was a sign, this celebration was a sign of blessing, and that yes, he is going to take care of her. So for it to go wrong was a big deal. And all of a sudden, maybe he's not the guy we thought he was. Maybe he can't take care of her. It was a much bigger deal than, hey, we're out of wine. Can you run to Costco really quick and grab it? Like, there's no quick solution. This is about to go down and bring shame on him and on his family in a way that they couldn't undo. Okay. So that's one piece of context. The second one is wine itself. Wine was used in celebration a lot. It was also like their most common beverage consumption. I guess that's the word you used. They would drink it more than water because water had a greater chance of being like impure and contaminated and making you sick. And so they would drink wine all the time. Usually it was a 1/3 or 2/3 ratio of water. Like they would water down the wine, but not for celebrations. Celebrations like this, they would do the full wine. But there was a deeper, like, spiritual meaning of why wine at the celebration. Let me read a couple verses so you could hear it. Psalm 104:15 said, "And wine to gladden the heart of man, oil to make his face shine, and bread to strengthen man's heart." Ecclesiastes 9:7, "Go and eat your bread with joy and drink your wine with a merry heart, for God has already approved what you do." Psalm 4:7, "You have put more joy in my heart than when they have their wine and their grain and wine abound." Wine represented joy and God's blessing and his favor and his like abundance on it. So when they would have wine, it would be this focal point of the celebration to say, like, this is not only we rejoicing, but we're enjoying the goodness of God and how he's provided and blessed for us. It was a symbolism of joy and God's provision and God's blessing. So for wine to run out, not only are you like, maybe this guy's the wrong guy and he can't provide, but also you're like, man, there would be this thought, is God blessing this marriage? So it had this deeper problem. And then the last one is this little reference to these stone jars, the jars that Jesus had them go and fill. And so just quickly, they were the rites of purification jars. This would be where they could wash up before the party. And I think the easiest way to say it is, if you were growing up in that time, like if kids are just honest and unfiltered. If you were asking a kid, hey, what's your faith mean to you? Like, what does your faith look like day to day? They would probably say something like, oh, we're always washing our hands. Like, all we do is wash. Because there were so many times where they were doing ritual washing. And it was also, so here's how God works. It has a practical benefit and a deeper spiritual meaning. So like, yes, it was good for hygiene. But there was a deeper spiritual meaning with every single washing. And that was that they were unclean, God was holy, and there was a separation between them. It was a reminder that I've fallen short of the glory and holiness of God and that I need something to make me clean so I can be right with him. They would do it in anticipation that one day God was going to provide a Messiah who would come and would cleanse us once and for all so we can be with him. So it was this way of remembering and reminder and practice of one day Messiah is coming. But for now, this is temporary and we're unclean. And for some reason, those jars are empty. What I don't know is if they're empty because of lack of planning, or they're empty because everybody used them when they came into the party and now they're empty. Either way, the point's still clear. The place they go to get clean has run out and is empty. At best, it was temporary and it's not enough. So the problem with this wedding is you have that there's about to be great shame to mark the groom and the family that they can't get themselves out of. You have the joy is about to run out, and you have an inability to make yourself clean. At best, it's only temporary, and pretty soon you're going to be stuck. Here's how we know Jesus was thinking about those things. And this is where it starts to turn into our deeper meaning, is this interaction with Mary. This is one of those ones where I was like, I don't even understand what's going on. I actually think there's more meaning to this interaction with Mary than I get. But we're going back to verse 4. And this is going to turn us to the deeper meaning. And Jesus said to her, "Woman, what does this have to do with me? My hour is not yet come." That's his response. So I've actually read a lot of different interpretations on what's happening between Jesus and Mary, and none of them are like really satisfying. So I think we can say two things for sure, and that's what I'll hold on to. First thing we can say, this is not a good universal response for a son to his mom. Like, if my wife says, "Nathan, go clean your room," that's my oldest son, or my only son, so he's also the youngest. If she says, "Go clean your room," and he says, "Woman, what does this have to do with me? My hour has not yet come," like, that's not going to go down very well, especially if I'm in the room hearing that. So probably not the most helpful point, but it's not a universal way to address your mom. Second is, based on Jesus' response to her, I think we can say, I don't know all that's going on in this interaction, but I think we can say he is clearly mindful of his bigger purpose. Right? Like that we can say for sure, is he's speaking of the reason why he came, not just this wedding. And I think that tells us what we need to know. Like, I do think he calls her woman because he's separating from her authority a little bit, and it's so that he can demonstrate that he's operating in the authority that God's given him in that purpose. That's a little harder to say definitively. That's just where my gut goes. But what we can say is that his response shows that he's mindful of the very reason why he came. So I don't think he's looking at just a wedding party. He's looking at the human condition. He's looking at the whole reason why he came to earth. Is that there's a people on earth who are stuck in this position of shame that's going to mark them forever, and they won't be able to get themselves out of it. That their attempts to go and get themselves clean and to be able to wash up have all fallen short and were at best temporary, and that their joy is about to run out. We've all experienced that where we've had part-time, short-term pleasure, fun, but it always runs out. And afterwards, somehow it's worse than when you started. And that's the human condition, and that's what he came into. He's not just seeing one wedding party, he's seeing the whole reason why he came to earth. And so what does he do? We know Jesus changes everything. He comes into it and he changes everything. And I want to remind us, before we look at the deeper meaning of each of these parts of the miracle, of John's purpose in writing this. In John, you don't have to turn there, I'll just reference it. John 20, 30 through 31. So at the end of this letter, the guy who wrote this book says that, he says two things separately, but I'm putting them together. He says separately, if he were to write down all the stories of Jesus, the whole earth would be filled with them. Like he had so many stories to tell of Jesus that the whole earth would be filled. But he wrote these ones down so that you and I would know that Jesus is the Messiah, he is the Savior, and that we could have life in his name. So he had the whole world's worth of stories, and he picked these exact ones specifically so that you and I would know that we can have life in him, that Jesus is who he says he is the Savior, and we can have life in him. So now we can take that understanding of why John wrote and look at these stories and say, how does this story demonstrate, how does this show and reveal that Jesus is the Messiah and I can have life in his name? So now it's not only about the wedding party and the reason he came for the people in the room, it's also for you and I. And we can look and say, well, how does this show me that I can have life in Jesus? So it's through that lens that we're going to kind of unfold this miracle even further, okay? And the way I want to do it first is looking at the jars. My question is, as I'm just going through and trying to understand this passage, is why the jars? Like, why does he go and get those jars? Wouldn't there be a bunch of wine vessels lying around, empty? And so I looked it up. I was like, well, maybe that's not how they did things. I don't know. And so I looked it up. And so this is how the wine process would work. They would store the wine in wine skins like their back stock, right? So your stock room would have, and I don't know if they had stock rooms, but it would have wine skin for the back storage. That would be where the wine would continue to expand, and there were one-time use. There's other passages about that. Then it would transfer to these amorpha, which were these clay jars with a narrow neck that had two handles on it, and from there you would take it from these amorpha, I have no idea if I'm saying that right, and you would pour it into the serving cups. So you'd think if they drank up all the wine that there would be a bunch of these amorpha lying around, and he doesn't say go fill those up. What he does say is go get those 6 stone jars and fill those up with water. Why? If you're into number symbolism in the Bible, the number 6 always represents man and mankind. Man was created on the 6th day, and that becomes the pattern for understanding the number 6. So there's a little bit there. If you don't like number symbolism, just let that go. But there's 6 stone jars. And here's what I think is happening. As he is saying, that place where you go, man goes, to make himself clean, that is empty and always runs out and leaves you unclean. I'm going to transform that into a place now where you go to receive what he has given you. So he fills them up, and they no longer are going to these rites of purification jars to make themselves clean. They're going to receive this new wine that he has given them. Jesus has come to flip the whole thing upside down. And I know that it's different for us. We don't go and wash our hands in these jars to remind us of the sin and the dirt on our hands, but we do have the guilt on our conscience. And all of us know what it's like to be weighed down by the guilt on our conscience, which comes from the fact that we are created for something more. And we were created to be with a holy God, but we fall short, and we know that. And so this guilt rides on our conscience. So all of us have turned to different ways to try and get ourselves clean, or at least escape this feeling and this weight of, I'm not what I should be. I've turned to religious structures. I've turned to things trying to be good and good enough, and it always leaves you with that same feeling that it's never enough. So yeah, I don't know what it's like to use rites of purification, but I do know what it's like to turn to things in my own strength to try and make myself clean, and it's never enough. When Jesus comes, he's saying, it's no longer you going to make yourself clean. It's you coming to what I've provided so you can receive it to make you clean. That's the first part. The second part is the wine itself. Think about this wine for a second. There's no grapes. There's no vineyard. I was teaching this to high schoolers one time, and I said, "There's no vintage." They're like, "What's a vintage?" I'm like, "Oh, I don't even know how to explain it." So this is not a seasonal great. There's no way you could reproduce this wine. This is literally wine from heaven. There's nothing on earth that supplied the resources of this wine, right? This is literally wine from heaven that they are now partaking in. The amount is, so with those 6 stone jars, that would be between 120 and 180 gallons, which would translate into 600 to 900 bottles of wine, which would essentially be 2,000 to 3,000 glasses of wine. The point is so much that it would not run out. That was the picture. Is there would be so much of this wine that would never run out. And so what we have here is not only are you going to a place to receive what Jesus has given, but also the joy that he supplies and the blessing from God that he supplies will never run out. It's not something we could create on our own. We can't reproduce it. There's no way that we could go and recreate this supply of joy and blessing and favor of God. And so Jesus brings it. And so now, instead of I'm going to make myself clean, I'm going to receive what he has done. And what he has done brings a peace that surpasses understanding, a joy that's inexpressible, and the blessing and favor of God that Jesus deserves now gets credited to me. That's the offer of the gospel. And then the last thing is the party being saved. This party was at the brink of, it's that moment where I think it's a very familiar feeling of you're somewhere, and it's the idea like if this gets out, if people know about this thing over here, for them the wine was about to run, or was out. People didn't know, but if they did, I'm going to be marked with shame that I can't get myself out of. Like, that's the feeling, right? Like, man, if they knew. I had a incident, this is a lighthearted way to look at it, where I was in this ministry, serving at this ministry, and I had a volunteer team for setup and teardown, and I got a text inviting me to a Super Bowl party that was also going to be a surprise party for this guy, Zach. And I'm like, this is way back when the Eagles played the Patriots long ago. And so I was like, okay, that sounds good. I don't have Super Bowl plans. I thought it was part of one pocket of friends, and I was like, okay, I'll bring the kids. It'll be fun. So I got this invitation, Zach's surprise party and Super Bowl party. It wasn't until I was driving out to the place that it was like 45 minutes away, and I'm like, I don't remember living out here. And I hadn't saved the number, obviously. Like, that's part of the key part of the story. And I show up at the house, and I knock on the door. I don't see any of the cars that I recognize, of like the friends I thought would be there, and the woman answers the door, and I realized two things there. One, she is not who I thought was texting me. And two, I have no idea who her son Zach is. Like, no idea. And so, but now we've driven 45 minutes, and it's out like way in the woods. And so I was like, okay, we're just going to go in and be at this party. Like, we're kind of committed. So I kid you not, I'm walking around a party of like 20, 30, 40 of Zach's closest friends and family, and I don't know who he is, and me, like, mingling around with my kids, who are the only kids there. This is so bad. And so I'm in this small talk conversations that I don't know how to, like, how do you know Zach? And I'm like, yeah, I forget how we met. Like, I don't know what's going on. And I'm telling my kids, just, like, eat up the food. I don't know what's going to go down, but this could be your last meal. Like, just go. And so finally it comes to, like, the part where he's going to arrive. And I'm very eager to find out. And so I sneak to, like, the back of the room, because I figure, like, the one thing I can give him is that at a surprise party, there's not, like, a stranger right in front of him. And then he's like, surprise, like, am I being robbed? Like, wait. So I'm hanging out in the back, and then he opens the door, and I realize, oh my goodness, it's this one guy I had one work meeting with one time. That's who it is. And his mom, who I did know through the ministry we're part of, I think she thought we somehow knew each other, but we totally didn't. So she invited me, and that was the breakdown. But as he's walking towards me eventually, she's explaining to him who I am. So I'm like, how does this even happen? Like, and then I was like, well, maybe this is like next level surprise party, right? Like, he gets a surprise, I get a surprise, and we're all surprised. But I remember, okay, the point I bring it up is, one, it's just, my kids hate me even speaking of it. They were like, that was so embarrassing. How do you do it? The way we got out of it, just to wrap it up, was my daughter starts having an allergic reaction to something she's eating, and I'm like, yes, we're out of here. Like, never been so proud. I'm like, thank you, honey. That's it. So we got out of there during the second half. But it was intensely awkward. I remember the whole time, like, the feeling, and it was always, it blew up in my head, but the feeling like at any moment they're all going to realize it, and the whole party's going to turn on me and be like, wait a minute, you don't know Zach. Like, who are you? And I'd be like, I know. And so I just had this super anxious feeling. I remember sweating a lot of, man, at any moment they're all going to find out, and I'm going to be super humiliated. That's a lighthearted way to kind of paint this picture that some of us walk around with all the time, and it's familiar to me too, where we have these pockets of shame in our life where it's like, if everybody knew about this thing over here, I don't even know what I would do. Like, that would be it. I couldn't overcome that. I couldn't get out of that. And that's happening at this party. And I know they may or may not have been aware of it, but they're at that moment. And the point is that Jesus has come in, and he's made a way before they even knew it, before it even came out. And he takes that area, and what could have marked them as shame for the rest of their lives, he flips it around to where it's the centerpiece of their testimony. And it's the reason why they are praised and revered at the end of the story. So those things that we think will be unable to be repaired, if this came to light, it would break everything. and I'd be stuck in shame. Jesus redeemed that whole thing, and now they're receiving accolades for something they never did. Just like we walk in the righteousness of Jesus that we didn't deserve. That long before we even had those things of shame, whether it was done to us or we chose it, doesn't matter. Jesus made a way before we even set foot on the earth for us to get out of it. And now we can actually walk in not the praise like as in worship, but the righteousness that he deserves, we can walk in because of what he's done. All right, so I think those are the three things of the bigger meaning. There's one more layer that we got to get to. And this is going to tie it into more for what it means for us. Look at the beginning of the story. And actually, we can go back a little bit to, I'll do this quickly. Verse 9, the next day. Verse 35, the next day. Start of our verses in chapter 2 says, on the third day. The third day of what? Why? Why does it go next day, third day? And then he stops counting. And here's what I think is happening. I think there's a practical reason. I think this is just indicating that the wedding this day was on a Tuesday because of how they numbered the days. But I think there's a deeper spiritual meaning because he goes next day, third day, and then stops counting, as I think it points towards another third day that is coming. When this is not just going to be wine that is transformed from heaven, but Jesus' blood is going to be shed on behalf of them and bring freedom from our sin, to erase our shame and to move us into the joy that is everlasting. I think he's looking towards what he's going to be doing on the cross. The other reason I think so is because remember how we talked about how a bridegroom and the groom would propose to the bride? One of the things that he would do is in that proposal, he would offer a cup of wine. And if she was going to accept, she would take it and drink of it. The next time in this story we see Jesus passing around a cup of wine, he's sitting around with his disciples saying, this is the new covenant in my blood. Do this in remembrance of me. And he's connecting both the proposal to his people and the fact that he's shedding his blood on the cross, and that we now can go and receive that work from him in order that we will be made clean, rescued from our shame, and receive that joy everlasting. I think he's mindful of the next time he's passing around a cup of wine. And I think that's the reason why it says the third day, and the reason why he came and did this during a wedding ceremony. See, it's one thing at first I started with, like, why this? Why this party trick for a wedding? But you think about it, the Bible starts with a wedding. Adam and Eve, and God gives the commission, and he says that you're to be fruitful and multiply. He gives the meaning and purpose for marriage, that they're to create this family and they're to steward the earth in a way that reflects his glory. And of course, it all went wrong, but it starts with a wedding, and then it ends with a wedding. That one day the full meaning and the full purpose of Jesus and his people will come together, and it'll be permanent and exclusive forever, him and his people in covenant. It begins with a wedding, it ends with a wedding, so it's the perfect way for him to start his ministry, is not just by rescuing one wedding, but showing how he's come to redeem the whole purpose of marriage. That what was broken and lost in the garden is going to be redeemed one day in fullness. And so he rescues this one wedding ceremony to paint the picture of why he's come, and that one day, once and for all, it's going to be redeemed. And so it's not just about the people in that room, but it's about each of us, how we've been offered that cup through communion. We've been offered that same cup of the new wine from heaven, which was Jesus' blood shed for us, that can make us free from that guilt once and for all, that can take what was meant for our shame and turn it into the centerpiece of our testimony, and to give us joy that is everlasting. I have a couple points of application, I think, that we'll land on. The clock's in the red, so let's wrap it up. Two things. One is, it says in there that the master of the ceremonies didn't know. We don't even know if the family knew. Do you think, here's where my brain goes in the question, do you think if the family knew, beginning to end, that you were going to have wine, start your party, and then you were going to run out, and then Jesus would redeem it, you'd have this better wine, do you think they would choose to go that way if they knew it? I think so. I think I would be like, yes, let's do it. Like, yes, it's going to get dicey for a while, but the redemption is so good, and we're going to be known for this, for throwing the best party. I would say absolutely. And I think it's a good reminder because that's the Redeemer that Jesus is, that the redemption is so good that it's worth going through whatever you went through to get there. And that's easy to say for their story. It's hard for what we're going through. It's hard when we're in the middle of ours to hang on to and believe that the redemption will have been better, will be so good, so sweet, that it would be better for having gone through what we've had to go through. And I say that only because Scripture promises it. I would not give you that. It would ring so hollow if I just said that out of my own wishful thinking. But we have verses like Romans 8:18, for I consider that the sufferings of this present time, the things done to you, the things you've chosen, all of it, the brokenness of this fallen world, the pain and suffering you've been through, are not worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed to us. To use it in the language of our story, the new wine is so good, you will forget about those moments when we ran out. What is coming to be revealed is so good. The redemption is so big. No one is going to be in heaven, in eternity with God, seeing him in his fullness, being with all the things of heaven, saying, I'm not sure if it was worth it. No, it's not even going to be worth comparing what we went through. And I know if we walked through each stories, there would be some heartbreaking truths. And so I'm just leaning into the promises of God who is faithful. And he says it's going to be so good, it's not even worth comparing. As hard, as desperately hard as it's been. That's how good the new wine will be. It is now, there's life in Jesus, but in its fullness for eternity. The second thing, hopefully that's something to hold on to as you walk through the days where the wine was run out. The second thing, and the last one, is, so who did know? You know, like, who was the group of people that actually got to know what was happening and be on the inside track? And that's the servants. There's a mention like the servants were. And I just think, man, that must have been so fun for them to be working that day and working that wedding and to tell that story to their friends. Like, you would not believe it. Like, then he turned it into this good wine. It's so much better. And they're serving it to people, and they just get to watch their faces light up, right? Like, they would be, and think about it. They've already drunk through all the wine in 3 days. They're probably a little excitable at this point, like a little tipsy. So you're serving them even better wine. And you just get to watch them light up and be like, no way, this is amazing, this is so great. And that'd be so fun to be the servant who knew the story, knew what was happening, and gets to just serve that to people who are probably thirsty. And that's exactly our role now. That's what we get the chance to do. As we know the new wine of Jesus, we know what he's offered, that there actually is freedom and power to come out from our guilt and our shame, that he actually has conquered it. He's conquered death, that there is real freedom on this earth now and one day in the fullness of fullness. We get to deliver that wine now. And by the way, it comes with joy that is inexpressible and peace that surpasses understanding, and there is so much supply in him, in Jesus, that it will never run out. That's what we get to deliver now. That's the good news. And we get to be the servants who we know the inside story, and there's people out there who are thirsty because whatever they were relying on, it's run out. And we get to go bring them the good stuff. Amen. All right, let me close us in prayer on that, and then we'll go to the next thing. Jesus, we just thank you for your intentionality, your purpose, for the depth of meaning in everything that you do. And I pray just right now for the full freedom that we don't want in part, we want in full. And so I pray that guilt, shame would all just fade in the background of the goodness of your provision, God. And I pray that joy would rise up, peace would rise up, righteousness would rise up, that our lives would reflect the goodness of what you've done. And we thank you that you are so good, so intentional, so loving, and so powerful. So I pray for every heart that needs a powerful God right now, and that you would meet them and bless them. In Jesus' name, amen.